Once again, TSM picking up another match victory here over APX. It's starting to, it's coming as no surprise. We expect this out of TSM. It happens in very much the same fashion that we expect out of TSM in these types of games where they look mostly clean, This one, of course, there were a couple skirmishes that broke fairly evenly, and that's kind of what I want to dive into is the fact that we had that early first blood go over in the invade, so Apex already on the back foot, and yet this was one of maybe the closer games that we've seen between TSM and a, bottom half team.
It's probably kind of game where they just let themselves go, say, you know what, we're probably going to lose this. Let's just go out. What can we make happen? And so they went for a lot of picks, and they just went all out with the LeBlanc pick as well. So you wouldn't expect Keane to take LeBlanc into Bjergsen's azir, but he did, and made it work better than we thought would. Lots of picks with the Bard as well. So they were trying quite a bit and being proactive, which was a refreshing thing to see.
Especially given how the game started. I mean, they gave up that first blood in the level 1, gank top, where it's just flashes blown, and then TSM ganks bottom, gets a kill, and then they waste their LeBlanc TP. You would think a team that was expecting to lose would just mentally crumble there, but they actually were able to make a number of plays and extend this game out to where it looked like there was even an opportunity for them to win, given that they were getting a lot of the good dragons.
Well, and that's the thing. A majority of the fights, the first 25 minutes of the game, still went relatively even. TSM had about a 2 to 3 kill lead throughout the game, and then a slightly larger gold lead that they were getting off of turret rotations, and that's what TSM does better than most of the other NALCS teams, is they're finding their gold leads without having to find kills necessarily.
Well, speaking of finding things, one of the things that before we're talking about TSM only playing Lucian, and now they're early rotationing Sivir every time. I think this is because Sivir is the best AD carry right now. Her DPS is unrivaled. Her laning phase is what was her weakness before, but the supports are now able to just get her by. The Braum, the Sivir, the Nami, the Karma can easily let Sivir go through the laning phase, and she just helps the team out so much. And the late game threat is just insane of a Sivir, and that's why we see regions like in LPL and LCK just prioritizing Sivir so much. It's a ban champion, it's a first pick champion, and that's why before we saw TSM last rotation in Lucian, but now they're just first pick Sivir. We need it.
Yeah, I mean, a super versatile champion who has high damage output in the late game, tons of mobility, both offensively and defensively, just from her ultimate for the entire team. Her biggest disadvantage is her range.
Right.
And so as long as you're able to build the composition that can protect her and compensate for her range, then you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, but she hits the tank and
it hits everybody
else. The range to everyone.
It's actually the long, she's the longest range AD carry if there are multiple enemies around. Either way, let's jump into some of it because we mentioned how a lot of those early game skirmishes did work out relatively evenly. Just 13 minutes into the game, we have a 2 for 2 in the mid lane here. So again, not a ton of advantages given one way or the other. Of course, Bjergsen had just roamed top lane to secure a turret there with Hauntzer.
It's going to start out by a nice Bard ult catching out Svenskeren right in the middle. So this is a good pick by them, but immediately gets turned out by the counter TP. This is a 4.5-second TP channel, so it's going to be a lot longer. And Azir goes in. They're right in the W, so it's a little bit harder for them to actually get damage onto the Shen. But this is where the Sivir starts to come in. She comes in untouched and is just able to dish out so much damage through the shields. The Karma's going to just allow her to just dish out so much damage and immediately forced to use the gnar ultimate, and it's just clean up from here on.
Well, right, and the thing is, as we go through a number of these team fights, you just have to keep your eye on Hauntzer and Doublelift because both of them are kind of like tag teaming a lot of these fights where Beer goes down early or Sven does, and then the two of them are able to basically clean up these fights, and it's not just like taunts, it's Hauntzer actually did a ton of damage with like his Q. There's a fight top lane in the jungle where there's a similar thing, and that fight would have gone much worse if Hauntzer wasn't able to stay in that fight the whole time, autoing before ultimately retreating and baiting out the gnar.
I think Shen does a deceptive amount of damage, especially if you're not tracking the sword. And in those larger team fights, it's very easy to lose sight of those kinds of things when you're more concerned with a Gragas who's body slamming
or an azir.
It's
that's
that
going to
percent damage sword that melts through people.
Exactly. So definitely catching people off guard there, and a wonderful display on the Shen from Hauntzer this time around. 25 minutes into the game, we're moving ourselves ahead 3 for 3 near Apex's blue buff. So even still, we're at that 25-minute mark, and this speaks to your guys' point about Apex still looking to find ways and still managing to do just that even with a poor start.
Right, and once again, this is going to be one of those fights where Bjerg and Hauntzer are the ones kind of getting focused down early. Ray gets a really good ult there to kind of serve Bjergsen up for the rest of his team. He gets popped right away. And then once again, it's kind of just Hauntzer in the middle of the team, auto-attacking nonstop. Same with Doublelift manages to sidestep the Bard ult there. Here, Hauntzer is on the Caitlyn, basically solos her out by himself while Doublelift deals with the rest of the front line. He gets an ult on top of him. They're like this tag team with them is just controlling these fights after the rest of his team is kind of going down.
I love how Doublelift started that fight, coming in from the bottom side, immediately flashing that blind Bard Q, seeing, I don't know how he saw that, but he just flashes it in and immediately joins the fight to reposition. So you rarely see an AD carry just flash in to begin the fight without even throwing an auto attack. So that was really impressive.
But that is two relatively even fights, at least in terms of kill score. Again, we have to remember that things can be taken on the back end of fights in terms of objectives, and so we're not necessarily considering that. But now I want to push us ahead to that 37-minute mark. This is where all of a sudden the game is one-sided. We've got a 4-for-0 from TSM here off of an Apex Baron start.
Right, so TSM was on the bot side, looking like they were picking up the dragon, and then they just forced the Baron. And Sven barely manages to get the steal while he was cocoon. He threw his ult in there as well. And then Hauntzer gets a monster taunt there, and Doublelift's already on the backside. So if people are trying to flash away from the taunt and the rest of TSM, Doublelift is just waiting there with open arms.
Very much so, yeah. So an easy triple kill over to the sivir here. On the back end of that huge taunt from Hauntzer. Easily roll through the mid lane to finish off the game there. Hauntser's going to pick up player of the game. Hey, who would have guessed, right? 5-0.
Doublelift did really well, too.
Doublelift wouldn't have guessed.
No, that is a good point to bring up, is that Doublelift was a close runner-up in this one. But when you've got 90% kill participation with 0 deaths, 5-0, 13 on that frontliner, you are landing taunts like that just help you secure those kills and lock someone out of a fight. It's big.
I think that's the more important kind of Shen play that you see, is not just like, oh, he had a good global ult that was kind of set up with the rest of his team, but in the thick of the fight, how is he actually playing? And he was always getting his like empowered Q auto attacks off, and just having that extra damage can sway a couple of those fights, which were super close.
Well, TSM still looks dominant, 2-0 over Apex, although Apex did put up a good showing. As we mentioned, the expectation was that they weren't going to be able to stack up, and they did put up a good fight. We're headed to a break, but when we come back, it's CLG versus Phoenix 1 in the Battle Arena's second match of the day. Stick around, we'll be right back.